As of writing this, Deltarune Chapter 3 and 4 have just come out, and man, were they worth the wait. Chapter 1 and 2 were excellent appetizers, but now we're finally getting to the main course. We have passed the halfway point, and man, what a note to leave on. Things have never felt more dour in the story, as Susie learns of a terrible fate that still remains. Chris, of course, has their mom fucked by Sans fucking Undertale. This is real. This is a real scene that Toby Fox makes every player watch, and contains Chris having to hear the traumatizing event of their beloved goat mom being taken to the bone zone by Steven after not surviving himself. Oh yeah, that's who this video is about, by the way, in case you didn't read the title. Sans probably doesn't need any introduction since he is by far the most popular character of Undertale. Sans the Skeleton. From the most famous moment of the hit game, the infamous Sans boss fight of the genocide route is probably something people will be talking about for centuries. It's just so iconic, and of course having Megalovania is definitely another boon for popularity. Despite, or more likely because he is so famous, debatably even more than the context from which he comes from, the common interpretation of Sans is rather skewed in many humble Undertale fans' eyes. Obviously everyone is entitled to their own interpretation of any given character, because I mean, that's what art is all about, the interpretation. But I think me and many Undertale fans see an apparent incongruity between in-game Sans and Fanon Sans. See, Fanon Sans is this badass skeleton who is the most powerful warrior in the underground that knows absolutely everything, but, you know, is super cool and chill about it. While in the actual game, he is really just a depressed slob of a monster who has access to direct confirmation that his existence is quite literally nothing more than a game NPC, and thus puts as little effort into everything, except for Papyrus and Toriel because he's an awesome brother and motherfucker, as possible, because he understands that everything he could possibly do could be reset within an instant simply because the person with the most determination at the moment isn't having enough fun. The disparity between Fanon Sans and Canon Sans can be explored simply by the fact that, ironically, the big-boned bastard's most iconic and defining moment is when he is least like himself, or rather when he finally goes against what defines most of his action: pure existential depression. Existential dread is that ever-relatable feeling of staring at your ceiling and trying to go to sleep and realizing that every single bit of the universe is infinitely scaling in all directions. Every action we can feasibly make in our reality is so infinitesimal, so incredibly tiny in the grand scheme of things that there's practically no point of doing anything at all. After all, we only exist for about 100 years if we're lucky, which is not even a blink to something like the sun's lifespan. But then again, the sun's lifespan of a few billion years is equally inconceivably small in comparison to the entirety of the universe, which itself will eventually die one day. And I'm sure there's an even bigger system that the universe is a part of that is so massive we can't even perceive it with our tiny little feeble minds. This dread is a slow killer, killing the mental state of many people by a death of 1,000 paper cuts. Everything starts to become increasingly pointless as people who experience existential dread begin to constantly think of how inconsequential human actions are in the face of an inevitable death of everything we can possibly conceive. This creates existential depression, where inhibition is now the primary inhibition of those who think only in nihilistic, pointless thoughts. What does one do with this information? Go to therapy? Get addicted to some form of drug? Write a YouTube video script at 5 a.m. in the morning about your favorite comfort character because you can't sleep because an infinite, indifferent universe has cursed you with insomnia and an ever-curious mind that picks away at pointless patterns of the universe searching for some unobtainable purpose in life? Play Fortnite? To be honest, I still don't know, and I think that's the point. Everyone's got to carve out some reason to keep going, to keep running. But it's definitely one of the many Sisyphean challenges humanity has to struggle with continuously until the bitter end. And so it can definitely be hard to get the courage and energy to try moving that boulder, especially if that boulder represents the insurmountable, inevitable indifference of the universe that you can do absolutely nothing about, which in turn causes a chain reaction of inhibition where it feels completely pointless to merely exist. But of course, as a human struggle, it must naturally be represented in art form. Existentially dreadful characters have existed for as long as humans could understand what a sum-zero shit deal we have existing in the land of flesh. Indeed, too, there have also always been characters who are aware of their own existence, and thus can model and provide us comfort with our own undeniable reality by demonstrating what it would be like for, say, a book character to realize they are merely a shared idea confined by words on paper. Breaking the fourth wall is an amazing tool for stories discussing the existential dread. I mean, for a fictional character to come in contact with the reality of their own existence, they would have to break the fourth wall and acknowledge the confining nature of whatever media they might be carried through at the moment. This analogy between a character and a story and a real person in the universe works really well too, as I'm sure everyone has felt like a predestined personality confined by words they didn't write nor consent to. It was only a matter of time once video games came out that such a character would be demonstrated in the unique interactive medium. As of late, indie games adore doing this. We live in the meta-digital age, so it only makes sense the smaller game developers would want to experiment with such trendy ideas as being aware you're in a simulation. The two characters that exceed in exposing this point are beloved Tumblr's Sexy King himself and Monica from Doki Doki Literature Club. Also Flowey, but we're not talking about him today. Monica and DDLC came out only a few years after Undertale, and it certainly feels like these both came out from the same hyper self-aware, self-obsessed era of the late 2010s. DDLC appears to be a normal dating sim filled with teenage high school girls who are definitely of age, even that one. See, it said so on the title screen, so please don't arrest me. Anyway, sorry if you somehow don't know the spoilers, but you gently open the door to see the girl next door hanging around. Lazy oaf. And yeah, this is actually a secret psychological horror game where Monica has become aware she is a dating game NPC and is painfully aware that she is the only one not dateable for some reason. So she goes all Giffany and kills the other characters off so that the game and you are forced to date her. While I wouldn't call her existentially depressed, more existentially fucking psychotic, her symptoms definitely still stem from the similar feeling of existential dread, as her written character comes to grips with her inconceivably tiny purpose, and that the only bridge she has to anything real is hard-coded to be blocked off from her reach. This is a phenomenal backstory and premise for a virtual novel horror game, and lets us explore many meta concepts that can only be explored through the realm of video gaming. Monica literally alters the code in real time, and the only way to defeat her is to delete her actual character file in the games, which is just so stupid and genius. Man, I love video games. It's like if I was in conflict with God, and he just deleted my genes, causing me to atomize into the air immediately. Bullshit. Enough of anime women though. I want my real turn on.
Sans Undertale.
So how does this leisure-bound pack of bones uniquely demonstrate existential depression while also using the special interactive mechanics only found in the art expression media known as video games? I don't know, someone should make a 40-minute long video essay about it so we both can be informed on such an important topic. Oh wait. This is that video. Oh shit. What YouTube video am I gonna watch while eating my signature breakfast? Font cestos now. Oh well, I guess I'll just have to skip out on the recommended daily dose of skeleton incest. For now. We can see how lackadaisical the skeleton is from the onset, as the very first scene he is in, he hunts you down like an actual monster would, only to hit you with the old whoopee cushion in the hand trick. This quickly establishes his leisure prankitude as his defining character trait, something that is doubled down on immediately once we meet his beloved cool dude brother, Papyrus. Papyrus is the opposite of Sans in many ways. Whereas Sans could probably do anything but chooses to do nothing, Papyrus is a hopeful dreamer who would do anything just to get people's mutual admiration of him, something he fails at quite often. This first scene with Papyrus is also where Sans first shows his preference towards breaking the fourth wall a bit, as he literally will look and wink towards the camera when he makes puns. It's so lazy and so on the nose, it's perfect. For this entire area of the game, you are consistently challenged by Papyrus in whatever wacky schemes he has to catch you. Each one fails in a unique and terrible way every time. Sans continually sits back and mocks his brother's antics, but he makes it exceptionally clear that he cares about his brother more than anything, and he encourages you to get along with him. Just from Snowden, we already know pretty much everything we need to know about Sans. He is a lazy prankster who cares about his brother deeply, but does have extended knowledge of the goings-on of his reality. Something interesting he said when you asked the shop rabbit lady about the Bone Brothers. She says they just kind of showed up one day and have entertained the town with their perpetual antics ever since they suddenly materialized. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Anyway, this area is much more about Papyrus as he is the main boss, and far more suited to the wacky antics that Toby loves putting in his games. Sans doesn't really get a dedicated area unless you count the Judgment Hall, but that's compensated for by his ability to seemingly insert himself at random intervals throughout the game. His mini station huts that he does everything but run are sprinkled throughout every area just to give us more of the blue bastard. I believe the first one is at Waterfall next to his infamous red eye telescope. He actually invites you out to hang out once you get there, and he seemingly wrong warps you to Krilby's, his favorite spot. This little hangout date is fascinating and very indicative of Sans as a whole. It begins with Sans knocking all the patrons dead with joke after joke, after which he talks with the player for a little bit with Undertale's standard Tumblr shitpost humor as he talks a bit about Papyrus, when suddenly the mood shifts. Sans asks if you know anything about a talking flower, because he says one has apparently been talking to Papyrus quite often, filling his head with wacky ideas. Now to the player it's obvious who this is, Flowey, the antagonist of most of Undertale, who basically is determination with no empathy incarnate. Flowey is the ultimate fourth wall breaker, even more than Sans, and he does take the opportunity to manipulate Papyrus for his master plan later in the game. The sad part is, though, Sans actually doesn't know about him, showing a blind spot in the skeleton that isn't much talked about. It's just said that even with all the knowledge Sans has, he still is blind to much of the goings-on in this game, and it makes me wonder if something different would have happened if only he knew. What's sad is he probably would have known if only the player wasn't there. Sans' broadened view of reality only lets him see when someone is screwing with the timeline. Catch is only one person can mess with the continuity. The one with the most determination, which would have been Flowey in any other instance, but unfortunately Frisk just had to drop their NB ass into the underground, overriding his rule. So in many continuities, Sans is probably very aware of Flowey, and probably has a really funny Tom and Jerry relationship with him, because Flowey is just an evil rat bastard who wants to kill everyone. Unfortunately though for Sans, he only has the knowledge of his current continuity, despite what a bit of the fandom might believe, because when you fall to him over and over again in the genocide fight, he only says that it looks like you're a time traveler who has died to him however many amount of times. He doesn't actually know. He does not remember your resets, people. He does not remember. I make this distinction because it's great clarification that Sans is not the ultimate omniscient badass time traveler many people like to think of him as. Because even if he may be able to be a badass warrior for about 4 minutes in the genocide route, that's really it. In truth, the extent of his ability is simply stalling the player's determination and nothing more. It's sad and he knows it, because we know that no matter what he does, really nothing will stop the player's determination and eventual reset of the world. This is one of the many reasons why Sans feels so powerless and pointless, and why he doesn't bother to do anything. In essence, he lacks determination, but is very able to recognize something we'll talk about more later. Anyway, that's only date hangout number 1 with Sans. Not even the main one, mind you. Now it is time to talk about the most defining moment in many players' eyes, the date where it's raining somewhere else. Before entering the Metaton Resort, Sans invites you to a reservation at the Primo restaurant on the first floor. He starts off talking about how you're almost at your journey's end, well, it might not be worth it to escape the underground, or complete the game, and that sometimes life is just about appreciating what you have. This is very significant for the Sans Deltarune believers, something which I'll talk about a little later. Obviously though, the important part of this dinner with Dormant Doom is what comes next. Sans begins telling his story about the old lady behind the door that he's been making jokes with for a long time. Obviously we know who that is as the player, it's Toriel. He then says that she randomly made him promise not to kill any humans that walk through the underground, and that shortly after, a little before we got out of the ruins, her voice stopped talking for some reason. Sans then tells the player the bone-chilling iconic line that if he didn't make that promise with Goat Mom, then buddy, you'd be dead where you stand. Notice while the font he uses is usually Comic Sans, but for this line and any of his more intense ones, he uses sans serif. The meaning of this font change is quite obvious. He ain't joking. He ain't joking. He then says to lighten up and that he was just joking around, an obvious lie, and that he's actually been doing a good job protecting Frisk. I mean, they haven't done it all, right? When he points out the player's lack of depth, he catches a look from Frisk that tells him otherwise. He laughs it off and excuses himself out of the restaurant. This, to many, is the perfect Sans scene. There are very little jokes in this scene except the ones he recounts with Toriel, which is said in a much more nostalgic tone than a jokey one. And of course the threat at the end makes it clear to us that in many other timelines, the iconic Genocide Sands fight might have been encountered as soon as you leave the ruins door. This entire scene is baked in a tone of nostalgia and over-sentimentality, especially with that incredibly melancholy backtrack. But why? For what is Sans reminiscing? Well, we may have a clue nowadays, and no, it's not Earthbound. Let's just say that he's remembering the good times he actually enjoys. We know he loves his brother in Toriel, and that he has a basic amount of sentiment for the other monsters. He's settled with the reality he's in right now, and is perfectly fine being in it, and even protecting it occasionally. But the question with Sans that I think everyone asks is why doesn't he do more? If he knows and has the ability to do so much, way more than the average monster, why doesn't he do anything? Well, actually, in a way he is. He knows that the player is essentially the god of Undertale, and can reset at any moment and make them all start everything from the beginning, all over again. Thus, his approach is actually to appeal to our sense of humor and sympathy. He's essentially trying to charm us into sparing the world, something he arguably does too well. Our final special individual encounter with Sans is the encounter in the Judgment Hall. This is where Sans the Skeleton lets the player in on his knowledge of the world and the truth of the various game mechanics we take advantage of. He talks about how the levels, or LV or love, actually mean levels of violence, which is just so fucking cornball, and that the more we kill, the easier it is to detach ourselves from our actions. XP, guess what? Means execution points, you guessed it, and every time we replay a certain bit of the game or go back in a save, we are forcing the characters to forget and relive those moments again and again through our determination. Sans is our judgment, something that's made blatantly clear if you decide to kill absolutely everyone up to him, because that's when you have a bad time. In most other routes though, he either pats you on the back with a smile saying, "Good job for not killing my friends," or scolding the player for, killing his brother. It's just so interesting to me that Sans of all characters is the judge of the player. He is ultimately the Underground's absolute final defense against players who are over-leveled. I think this event is what really cemented his role in the bigger picture. He only has the appearance of a goofy skeleton in this scene because in practicality, he is your final judgment, and he is stronger than you, sometimes. I love this moment too because this is what absolutely everything was leading up to. This is the bad time, and if you actually do fight the anti-megalomaniac, he delivers on everything in this fight, as he dunks on your ass 50 billion times while just moving out of the way of your splash. On top of that, he is exposing the entire time about how he apparently has a team that tracks time anomalies. Probably just him and Alphys trying to figure out what a gaster is, to be honest, and that he is apparently from some place he can't get back to anymore. I wonder what's up with that. There's also the middle bit where he tries getting you to spare him, only to dunk on you in the stupidest fashion possible. And the music, man. Oh, Megalovania, my beloved. This is probably my most listened to song of all time. And yeah, it's overrated and probably not the best Undertale song, but it's one of them. It's overplayed for a reason, and it doesn't take any motif knowledge to fully get like the rest of Toby Fox's music. Well, unless you count Megalovania itself as a motif, considering this song is more like Toby's signature. He's always reinventing and taking wherever he goes. Undertale's is actually the third rendition, and I get why it was the version that caught on so well, because it still is the best version, in my opinion. Oh yes, and I can't talk about Megalovania without talking about how it and Sans got into Smash, which is just crazy to me. He's got a little gaster blaster and his pink slippers, it's just so cute. And the Megalovania got a new rendition with Toriel and Papyrus's motifs baked into the new solo section. Just human media at its best, honestly. I don't know why it wasn't included in the original. I just had to gush about Megalovania in this quite a bit. But there is something else really cool that happens with Sans in the Judgment Hall. A glimpse of a possible future for his possible past. If you're a decent person and make it to him here, listen to his whole spiel, and then reset and talk to him again. He'll start to recognize you've heard what he's saying before, and asks you if this is the case, and then chooses to challenge your time travel abilities by using a complex time traveler code that only other Sans variants can understand. After declaring yourself Fart Master, Sans materializes a key onto your keychain. The key to his room specifically.
Ooh.
Once you get to his room all the way back in Snowden, you soonish realize, with Papyrus's help, that he's been fucking with you across space-time, which is the most Sans thing to do ever. Inside of his mostly disgusting room, you find yet another key to a secret storage room behind the brothers' abode. This room is still being figured out to this day, but I think Toby may have given us the puzzle pieces we've needed to determine with absolutely 0% doubt that Sans is in fact fucking your mother. Sans Undertale? More like Sans Deltarune, because, he's definitely from Deltarune's timeline. I have no idea how or why, but all the pieces point to it. His secret space-time machine, the pin that says don't forget with 3 mysterious friends, the blueprints which probably have wingdings on them, River Person saying beware the man from another world, Sans saying he doesn't even try to go back anymore even though he really wants to, the shopkeeper saying the brothers just suddenly appeared one day, Sans' weird time powers, his ultimate indifference to 90% of what's going on, his bleeding which normal monsters can't do, but we know Susie, who is a monster from Deltarune, can, his doorway being the fast travel system of Deltarune's first 3 chapters, and oh yeah, the bombshell at the end of chapter 4 when the song The Place Where It Rained plays, which is just It's Raining with Somewhere Else, slowed and without Sans' motif. And it almost sounds exactly like the version in Sans' Shed, but again without his theme. They're both slowed down a little bit. Well, all of this is definitely just a coincidence and not important at all. If this is true, then we'll have an amazing backstory for Sans Undertale, or I guess Sans Deltarune now. My complete shot in the dark is that Sans is actually from hometown, and that the machine or device that allows the player to go to Deltarune's world is what will bring Sans back into the Underground's world. I'm not sure if Papyrus is a goner or not, or if he'll even show up in Deltarune, I can only hope. But if Sans has some sinister scheme relating towards Papyrus's existence in the later chapters, I'll be very joyous, I'll put it like that. I have no idea if Sans really is Gaster's son, or right brain, or whatever, or even if Gaster exists. All of Deltarune is just Toby gasturbating, and it is just gets tiring after a little bit. Like, is his theme everywhere? Is every arpeggio I ever hear Gaster's theme? Is this fire alarm Gaster's theme? It's just, like, he really is just Schrodinger's plot device for Toby. I just can't wait to see Sans become the Sans we know. Even though they're really not that different on the surface level, it's just that Sans Deltarune actually gets to bang your mom, thus making him the obviously happier version. Now it is time to bring all the pieces together, like Sans brings all the autism and gays together to make the gayest, most autistic shit possible. Sans lives the existentially terrifying life that is being an NPC. Sans is subjected to having his reality reset countless times, and worse, knowing about it. He's very aware that reality for him cannot go further than the true pacifist credits. He cares about nothing and has no aspirations besides goofing around because what more can he do? He already knows it's all a game, and that he's not even a player in it. It's interesting how opposite he is from Undyne, the other genocide group boss. She is one of the few monsters to have enough spirit to actually harness the power of determination once she finds you, the true monster that has been hunting the people Undyne swore to protect. She actually isn't strong enough to harness her determination in neutral runs, where she dies. She only can harness it when faced with a fully leveled Kara. Sans is the opposite of this because he is actually the least determined monster of all. He is depressed, to the point where it takes you killing literally every monster you can possibly find in the underground before he ever gives you a bad time. I find it interesting he doesn't have enough will to fight you, even when you kill his brother Beerist. No, only once you kill Metaton does Sans really take an issue with the player's actions. Of course, when Sans does actually muster up the will to do anything, he kicks the player's ass as much as possible, while doing everything he can to appeal to the player's empathy, to maybe even have a sliver of a chance to defy Frisk's determination. But, as he knows, that'll never be the case permanently. It's only a matter of time before the player explores every path again and again, good and bad. It's just such an awful bit of knowledge to be exposed to, with no ability to change it. Sans masks and or copes with his depression with his lazy, simple jokes and pranks, probably because they're simple, effective, and funny. But perhaps because of another reason too. The sensational skeleton might be doing the most wild play of all, by using his depression to charm the player. His wacky antics, winks at the camera, breaking the game in every small way he can, it's all to appeal to the player and weaponize our empathy against us by saying, "Hey buddy, if you really care about us, give us the best ending and leave us alone. I can see you." This unfortunately I think worked too well. Sans and most of Undertale really have a greatest strength that is also their greatest weakness. Undertale's whole point is to get you to empathize with its characters as much as humanly possible, which should ideally leave you with the responsibility to leave the game alone after the pacifist ending, but unfortunately, this pathos mainly comes through way of incredibly memorable characters and moments that most people want to play multiple times over. It also doesn't help that more than half the game's text and dialogue is locked between different routes and replaying certain sections in certain ways. This whole game is absolutely littered with secrets, to the point where it's no way Toby didn't want us to go back and fuck around with his creation. Sans is especially guilty of this, because he is probably the main reason most people even do genocide in the first place. It's an ironic travesty that Sans doomed himself and the underground by trying to protect it. And being a self-aware boss that does everything to get you to deviate from your current path, he ended up becoming the biggest advertisement of it. Obviously, Toby couldn't have predicted that Undertale, and especially Sans, would have taken off the way they did, but it just raises an impossible question of whose fault is it that we played the genocide route? Is it the player who purchased a gaming experience for fun? Is it the developer's fault for putting too much heart into places he didn't want people to see? Is it the fanbase's fault for being so super fucking cringe? Or is it somehow the game itself's fault? Is it Santa's fault for being just too sexy? In reality, all of these things are at fault for the perfect storm that is the hypocritical genocide route. And I imagine if Sans could glimpse at what he's become, he would probably have a bad time. I, like most people, have dealt with existential depression for a long time. The absolute terror of being infinitely inconsequential to the goings-on of my larger reality, the reality that I'm just a small meat machine on a big rock in a vast sea of nothingness that is quintillions of times larger than the solar system, which I cannot even begin to comprehend the expansive size of. Not to mention, even the things we can do and change are incredibly weak to the universal erosive force of entropy. Indeed, most of reality is an endless list of Sisyphean tasks that reset over and over and are never meant to actually permanently be complete. The only true rest we are granted is when we die, and that has a whole other can of existential fears with it. Despite the fact we are gods to beings like Sans, in reality, his everyday life is modeled a lot like our own, an endless wash of endlessly repeating tasks that have no actual point or purpose. I think anyone can understand where Sans is coming from and how pointless he feels sometimes. But Sans also provides us a nice message to go along with our "I wanna fucking kill myself" juice. Sans shows us a way to use these feelings as a way to express and connect to people who will make you feel like it doesn't matter. The same way he uses his lazy bastard-ass persona to charm us in the same way in which we can use our lazy bastard-ass personas to actually make connections with real people who will hopefully help us find meaning in the everyday monotony of life. Wow, thanks Sans for this valuable lesson. That being said, please for the love of Gaster stop fucking my mom. Please Sans, please! Hi, thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed me ramble about Undertale. Anyone who knows me in real life knows I can't stop myself, especially when new content like chapters 3 and 4 come out. I have no idea when this video will be done, but I'm going to make the assumption it's before Undertale's 10th anniversary. But I don't really care. Happy early birthday, Undertale. You have ruined my life by infecting me for an entire 10 years. Here are my therapy pills. In all seriousness, Undertale is one of my top 3 games of all time, and has shaped my very soul directly. So thank you, Tony Fucks, for making the gayest, most autistic game of all time. My next video won't be coming up for a while. It's going to be something I actually use for school, so it'll be a bit different than these slop essays. It's still a very long-winded essay, just more focused and professional, so I'm very excited for that. And I haven't even finished the book I'm going to be writing on yet, so yeah, it'll definitely be a minute. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. I have the goal of hitting 2 million subscribers before 2026, and I think we can do it, Pudgeheads. Anyway, have a nice night, and drive safe.